Thank
We're going to
you.
call the meeting to order. We are recording, right, John?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome to the Whitman Finance Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. It's 7 o'clock. We're meeting virtually on the Zoom platform. I'm going to forego the review of the agenda. Everybody should have received in the by email. And we're going to go right to our agenda item regarding the reserve fund transfer. So I'd like to entertain a motion to take this reserve fund transfer off the table.
So moved.
We have a
Second,
motion, we have a second. Roll call, John, Galvin,
Yes.
Kathleen,
yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Al. Okay,
Yes, Rick. Yes, sorry.
Rosemary,
Yes.
John Noon,
Yes.
and I vote yes, so it is off the table. Where we stood last, tabled the reserve fund transfer. It is a Board of Selectmen request for a transfer for the amount of $1,454.40. It is the salary for the recording secretary to the Board of Selectmen. So what I'll do is we'll welcome to Lisa Green and Dan Salvucci, who I don't see it now.
He's here.
He's there. Did he jump out, back out, John?
He's here.
No, Dan's here.
Okay, great.
I'm
All
here.
right, so I'll open it up for questions. Anybody have questions for either Dan or Lisa Green? Now is the time. Dave,
Just as a matter of record, I'd like to have the correspondence to the Board of Selectmen and FinCom regarding this from the chairman of FinCom regarding this reserve fund transfer read as part of the record.
and which email are you speaking about?
All right, let me read as part of the record. And let me share my screen and does anybody have a better ability to share screens?
What are you looking to share?
Well, actually, never mind, hold on. Bear with me. Stop video, pin, hide view. Share screen, here we go. Can everybody see that?
No, I can't.
All right, bear with me.
Is this something that was sent out by email earlier?
It was sent out by email. Doesn't look like my computer's allowing me to do it.
Sent by who
So-
to whom?
Dave,
Uh,
could you just give us an overview of the
I
email?
will. On January 13th, the Finance Committee Chairman sent the following to the Board of Selectmen and FinCom. Good morning. I'm following up with the attached reserve fund transfer request that was tabled at our Finance Committee meeting last night. For some reason, action on this seemingly innocuous agenda item has necessitated further dialogue with the Board of Selectmen. If there are members of the Board of Selectmen who are objection to funding the nearly exhausted salary line for your recording secretary, you are cordially invited to the next meeting of FinCom meeting on January 19th, 2021 to provide this information. For the record, this transfer request was brought to the FinCom on 1/5/21 and held over last night for discussion. The 1/21/12/21 FinCom meeting agenda and log were copied to BOS last week. So I had responded to the chairman with the following. I disagree with the characterization of the reserve fund transfer being quote unquote seemingly innocuous. The reserve fund transfer form version, which is different from the one that you included in your email, and I'm not sure if I'll be able to share those, presented to FinCom was incomplete. It had no justification for expenditure, and it was not signed by an officer or department head. However, the final form is consistent with your chairman's description presented at the last FinCom meeting. It is my experience with FinCom reserve fund transfer deliberation votes is that the form is presented as complete as well as signed. Additionally, the respective department head, or in this case, Board of Selectmen, is typically present during the FinCom meeting to answer any questions no department head nor selectman was present. The reason why I wanted that read into the record was that, in short, the form that was presented in its physical form via email to Finance Committee had no amount to it, was not signed by a department head, and that had no justification for the expenditure. Following that meeting, the chairman of FinCom provided an explanation, however, never provided FinCom with a physical copy via the internet of that reserve fund transfer. So we were being asked to deliberate, discuss, and potentially vote on a blank reserve fund transfer that had no justification. So that's how we got to this point. And Dan, I don't mean to take up too much of your time.
That's fine.
But I'm sure you wouldn't want to sign something that was completely and be responsible for something that was completely blank. Am I correct in assuming that?
I would say that the form that I signed did have an explanation and did have an amount.
Right.
So just to follow up, yeah, so that the document you're referring to, Dave, absolutely. I don't think anybody had any intent on acting on a document that was blank. So the subsequent meeting, the meeting that the reserve fund transfer was held over to, the form was complete, as you said in your email. So again, I understand your concern, and I certainly want to make sure that this board has all the information before it makes recommendations on anything. So here we are now, week 3. We tabled it last week, which is fine. I much rather have your questions answered before anybody from this committee makes any recommendation. So I'll hopefully hear from Lisa Green.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. When I had returned from vacation and this was brought to my attention, I was working from home on my work issued laptop. I did fill out the form the best I could on the laptop, and I did email it to Chairman Anderson. The information, when I had filled it out, had the date, had the amount, and had my name on it on the signature line. The form did not allow for me to put a full justification and information in the line. It was cut off. But I was told, we need to get this going. So I emailed it. On my end, when I look at the sent item, it has that information. For some reason, by the time it had received, it went to Mr. Anderson's email, it had removed that information. I was not aware that it was blank. In the interim, you folks discovered that information was removed. Lori O'Brien wrote the information in the amount, and then she submitted it to Dan Salvucci for signature. So I did on my end the best I could at home, quarantining as required on my laptop, but I have no explanation of how, between me sending it, which I did show Rick Anderson today so he could see it with his own eyes, the information was there. From the time it left my laptop and went into an email, that information was removed, and I have no explanation for that.
And if I may to add to that.
Go ahead. Yep. Yeah.
Thank you. Usually in the past, if we needed a reserve fund transfer for our recording secretary, Frank would write it up and he would submit it. And because we meet on the same nights, and Frank would, if he knew it was going to come up and he talked to the chairman, he would leave our meeting, go to across the hall, sit down with you, explain it, and then come back to our meeting. We don't have that luxury now, right? I had to ask for a motion to recess from my Board of Selectmen's meeting, and they're just sitting waiting for me to come back in to join your meeting. And when you voted on it last week, when I was in the office signing warrants, Rick came in, your chairman came in, and I explained to him what it was, and he saw no issue. He said, no, and I said, look, I can't be in two places at once, right? We have a meeting tonight that was really important, and we're going to do a veteran to service officer. We were picking a new veterans officer, and I couldn't, as I say, I couldn't be in two places at once. Right? And I'm finally learned how to, I got one iPad with my selectmen's sitting there waiting for me and another iPad talking to you guys. So I explained to Rick that I counted them on my iPad, 45 meetings since the beginning of the fiscal year. And he had, right? And normally we have 2 a month. It's like 7 months into the fiscal year. That's like 14 meetings, but we've had 45. One of those meetings was 6 hours long. We're picking a new town administrator, listening to them. That being said, Rick said to me, yeah, you guys have been meeting a lot too. So, I mean, I don't know how your recording secretary, how your line item is doing, where we're in such strange times that we're meeting an awful lot more than we've usually met in the past. So I made sure that I explained that to Rick and the reasons why. And I sent him an email when I realized, and went on my iPad and I started counting how many meetings we've had in the first fiscal year. And as they say, and under normal conditions, when Frank was our chairman, I mean, if he needed a reserve fund transfer for a recording secretary, and he knew he wouldn't be able to finish to the end of the year, he would just request a reserve fund transfer for that and come across the hall and explain it to you. But unfortunately, I couldn't do that.
Okay, all right. In the interest of time, Dan, too, let me just make sure that anybody else from the committee if anybody else has further questions regarding the reserve fund transfer, just in an effort to get you back to your selectmen's meeting.
Yeah.
So
And
I'll-
also, if possible, I would like if you have your motion, the results of your motion, so I can tell my board.
Okay.
And just to let you know, I know you have asked for us to have a meeting in the future, right? In a couple of months or a month. My board would like to wait till our new town administrator gets his feet wet before we have a joint meeting. So he
Very
knows
good.
basically where we're going.
All
So
right,
we will let him contact you when we're ready.
excellent.
All right?
All
I
right,
just don't want to have a joint meeting and it doesn't, no resolution. So, all right,
understand. Okay,
Thank you.
so any other questions from the board regarding the reserve fund transfer? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the reserve fund transfer in the amount of $1,454.40.
So moved.
We have a
Second,
motion and a second.
second by
Further
Chuck.
discussion? Okay, roll call vote. John Galvin,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Rosemary,
Yes.
John Noon,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
thank you, Chuck,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And like I said, in the future, if we have reserve fund transfers, if we have questions, we'll make sure that it is communicated with everybody in a more timely manner. So thank you for taking the time out.
Absolutely. And let's hope we can get through this year a lot better than what we're doing. And as I say, I'm running for, it's probably not appropriate. I'm running for reelection, so I may be knocking on your doors for a signature.
Okay. All right, Lisa, thank you also for coming into our meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right,
Okay, thank you.
okay. So into the agenda. Just to review meeting minutes we have tonight, we have December 15th, January 5th, January 12th. The reserve fund stands at $38,775 and 60 cents, which will be changing following the acceptance of the reserve fund transfer. Old business, we're going to do subcommittee reports. And then other business, we do have one communication. And then I did meet with town administrator, interim town administrator, Lisa Green, as she mentioned, and I have 5 subjects that we reviewed that I will share with the board. Okay, so if the board will entertain reviewing meeting minutes. Everybody received copies of the 3 meeting minutes that are referenced in the agenda. Did anybody not have a chance to review the meeting minutes and would like to delay action? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the December 15th meeting minutes, which is the first chronologically. And it starts on page 359. So we have, basically the first page was to act on outstanding meeting minutes. Anybody have anything they want to amend on that page? The second page is page number 360, where our Superintendent Jeff Samanak and members of the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District School Committee joined the meeting. And these, the text involves his presentation. Does anybody have anything they would like to change on that? John Noon.
The sixth line from the bottom. I think the sentence needs to be a little bit restructured. If not 5% increase is voted, that would be a loss of $800,000.
So if a 5% increase is not voted,
Needed to be addressed.
Samantha, you have that?
Got it.
Okay. Thank you, John.
So I think if it's rephrased to, if 5% increase is not voted, does that sound?
Yeah, Samantha, you want to read back how you're wording it?
I changed it to not.
Okay. So just as you said, John. Anything else? Anybody else? Thank you. Page 361. Again, in the presentation for the superintendent, 7:56, the superintendent and the school committee members departed, and Mary Beth Cotter arrived to discuss the reserve fund transfer. Anything on page 361?
Rick,
Kathleen?
I don't have any amendments or any changes, but I want to, after we approve the minutes, I want to come back and discuss what we have in this December 15th meeting minutes. So I'm not going to move to amend anything. I think it's fine the way it is.
Okay. And then so on the final page, 362, Mrs. Cotter departed, and then we had discussions with, Dave gave a report. And then I gave an overview of my pre-meeting discussion with the interim town administrator. And then John Galvin discussed about the budget deficit and the other challenges that the budget is facing for this year. Anybody, anything else on page 362? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes for December 15th as amended.
I move them.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Let's see, do we have nobody absent? Roll call, John Galvin.
Yes.
Kathleen.
Yes.
Al.
Yes.
John Noon.
Yes.
Ralph. Ralph is yes. Chuck.
Yes.
Dave.
Yes.
Rosemary.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay. The meeting minutes are accepted as amended. I would now move to review the meeting minutes from January 5th. So this, and anybody need more time for reviewing of these meeting minutes?
Just quickly,
Kathleen?
Dave sent us revised minutes, and if he could, Dave, if you could walk us through the changes instead of us looking for the
Okay.
changes, I think that would be helpful.
Do you want to wait till the page? Is it on the first page? Dave? Dave, you're muted.
Bear with me. I think if I'm correct, any changes are in the color blue and then red for strikeout. I guess not.
Okay, so not everybody has your amended meeting minutes. I do not. I have the copy that I sent to committee. So,
Maybe I sent the wrong ones.
Dave, they
No,
have red and
you-
blue on page 366.
Yeah,
I printed
he
them
sent
out.
an email. He replied to your email, Rick, right before our meeting started. However, it is a a Pages document, which is a Mac formatted file. So anybody that's on a PC might have problems opening this file.
All right, would the board entertain a motion to table the meeting minutes to have the edits incorporated and resubmitted for review?
I move to table.
Okay, we got a
Second.
motion.
I sent a Word doc as well, so both,
Oh, is that the same? Are they both?
yep, they're both the same.
Oh, all right,
Two
all right,
different
all right.
formats for
I
Word.
apologize. I thought that was the original document.
I'm having trouble opening it, so if we don't mind, I second Kathy's motion.
Well,
So we have a second?
I can say it out loud if that would make it easier for everyone.
Excuse me. I would like to read what Dave sent first before we go.
Okay,
Easier for me, so
is
please.
it on the first page?
No.
Well, we
It's
have
not
we have a motion to table and a second.
Okay, we have a motion to table and a second. Samantha, you would like to read his edit before we table it? Is that your
No.
request?
No, my request is that you table it so I can read what he wrote.
Oh,
It'll be,
Okay,
I
very
know, I
good.
want you to table it.
very good. All right, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Okay, John Galvin,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
John Noon,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Rosemary,
Yes,
and I vote yes. Okay, so the meeting minutes from January 5th are tabled. So I would suggest that the edits that Dave has requested get incorporated into the meeting minutes, and then Samantha, if you could send them back out.
Absolutely, yes.
Excellent. Is everybody in agreement with that process? All right.
Sure.
Yes.
Hold off on that one. Are there significant edits to the January 12th meeting as well, or not? No, okay. So we have one more meeting minutes to review, January 12th, 2021. They start on page 368. Anybody have anything that they would like to amend or add or delete from that first page? Seeing none, we'll move to the second page. So the top of the second page starts with the town meeting being indefinitely postponed. Mr. Cadero provided an update from the Building Facility Capital Expenditure Committee. Mr. Galvin provided an update on the Whitman Middle School project. And then the final paragraph is regarding non-mandated busing. Anything on that page that requires discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to the final page.
I have a change, Rick.
On page
On
370?
page 370, yeah.
Yes.
On the second, well, the first paragraph, I guess, where I'm talking about the Madden report, and then the second line, I say the current budget deficit is 520,000. That is not a correct number, and I don't know if that's really what I said, but that number is 748, not 520. Now, if I said 520, that was an incorrect statement. I'd hate to have the minutes reflect an incorrect amount. I don't know how we do. I didn't go back and listen to the meeting to see if I did say 520. I just don't know how
Well,
address that.
on that date, with this meeting minutes for January 12th, the deficit was in the 700, so.
No, I know. It caught my eye too when I was like, okay, well, how come the deficit changed? But I also don't work with Article 2 all the time.
Right,
So
right.
Yeah.
So, I
So
mean,
I think everybody on the board is aware of the amount of the deficit, so I don't have a problem with amending to the realistic amount as opposed to maybe what you stumbled across. When you
Yeah,
said
right.
it.
So, yeah, so the number should be 748, 120. So if that can be changed, I would
Okay,
want to have
Samantha, you got
accurate
that?
information.
done.
Thank you.
748, 120. And
Thank
then just in the middle of that paragraph as well, Samantha, very much in the middle. It's just a standalone sentence that says, Mr. Anderson stated that he hoped that we will be on the road to recovery in fiscal 22. I mean, it's a pretty general statement, but I think I prefaced it by saying with respect to the pandemic's impact on the budget. I think that if you could just throw that in there before it puts it into context. Because when we were discussing the budget, I said, well, you know, this is fiscal 2022's budget, and then hoped, you know, we'd be on the road to recovery after the new fiscal year. So,
All set.
thank you very much. Anything else on page 370? That is the final page, I think, for that meeting minutes. Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes from January 12th as amended.
I
So
move-
moved.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Further
Second,
discussion. John Galvin,
Yes.
let me just see if nobody was absent. Kathleen,
Yes.
Al,
Yes, sir.
John Noon,
yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Rosemary,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you, Samantha, for getting the meeting minutes in order, and we will look forward to seeing the amended meeting minutes that we can act upon at our next meeting. So on the agenda, under old business, subcommittee reports, Building Facilities Capital Expenditure Committee. Dave, anything to update the board?
We have not met since our last FinCom meeting, so, but however, I have been in communication with the chairman of the commissioners for water and sewer. They recently met with their representative environmental partners to discuss the proposed sewer forced main project. And they plan, I watched the meeting, however, I don't know if anybody else in our committee had watched the meeting. And during that meeting, the commissioners had agreed to provide the Capitals Committee with additional information that we had asked in our meeting, which included, you know, essentially, you know, how did the environmental partners come up with the numbers for the cost estimate? There were questions of, you know, was it you know, based on past experience? Was it based on past projects? So we're still waiting for that document. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave for the Capital Committee? All right, thank you very much. Regional Agreement Amendment Committee, no action there. Middle School Building Committee, John?
We have not met. Our next meeting is February 8th.
Okay, February 8th. Whitman Hanson Regional School District Assessment.
Just
non-mandated
quickly.
busing.
Back to John and that committee.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. The state is determining, you mentioned how they fund it based on the student enrollment. And you had said that there's an issue with how they're calculating it. I think I went back and reviewed the minutes. Are they calculating it based on women's reproductive rates? Is that correct, essentially?
Yes, they have a very bizarre formula, and I believe there is something about, yeah, it's a very bizarre formula. I couldn't tell you what it all is, but Dave, do you have some more input on that?
I don't think
You're on-
rights is the right word. I think it's reproductive.
Not rights, I'm sorry, they're age, productive age. Females
Reproductive age, I think,
ages.
is part of their calculations. I do believe there's something in there along that line, so.
Right. So
Okay,
that's
and-
that's one of the many things that they use. The school committee didn't provide us every single parameter that they use, but that was one that they did mention.
It's not the school committee, it's the MSBA's formula.
Oh, yes, it's the MSP. So how accurate, has anybody gone back and seen how accurate that particular formula is now that times are changing and same-sex couples, even within our own community, have children, but people are having children later, and that it's very transient. Sometimes there's a single mother or a single father having a child that's, you know, with rental apartments and other things. Has anybody looked at if that, when they first changed that formula? Just curious, things are changed, and that seems like a very odd way to calculate, opposed to just how many buildings there are and how the capability of those buildings to have children in them. So every 2-bedroom could have at least one child.
All right, well, I think it's important that the committee has that information and asks the questions about how
Yeah.
it is calculated. So
How it is
your point is
calculated.
well taken. Thank you. Anybody else? Questions for John? Okay. So with regard to the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District assessment, non-mandated busing, Kathleen, any updates as the liaison for the district?
No, it's frustrating because I did watch the Hanson Finance Committee meeting last Tuesday nights, obviously on tape. And it appeared as if the Hanson Finance Committee chair, having met with the town administrator and their town accountant and the chair of their board of selectmen, had numbers that were concrete, talking about 11.4 million rising to 12 point something. It's a 4% increase. And I was curious where those numbers came from, since we haven't received anything from the superintendent. But apparently, Rick, you did talk to Lisa Green today, or I had asked you to see if anyone in Whitman at the Board of Selectmen had received any communication from the superintendent, since we're still working in the dark.
So yes, I did follow up on your concern, and Lisa Green agreed to contact Hanson to find out if in fact, well, she actually contacted the superintendent to find out if he had shared any budget information with the town of Hanson, and he said that he had not. So I forwarded that email thread to the committee, so you can see that your question was asked and your question was answered. So my guess, and just hypothetically, is that the Whitman Finance Committee plugged in a number on our Article 2, and it seems as though Hanson plugged in a number on their Article 2.
Okay.
Maybe it's based on what they think they can afford, but more or less it's just a place setter, no different than ours, I guess.
Okay.
Anybody have any follow-up other than that? Okay.
And then on the non-mandated busing.
Go ahead. Yep.
Okay, this is where I'd like to refer back to the December 15th minutes, if I can find them. I may not be able, yes, right here. What I want to point out is that in the superintendent's explanation of why it will be a challenge to look at this $400 and some odd thousand non-mandated busing dollar figure, he talks about students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch are entitled to the bus, and that would be a problem. And the fact of the matter is, if the town of Whitman chooses to enact a pay-to-ride program, Chapter 71, Section 68 specifically states that students who are entitled to free and reduced lunch will not be expected to pay this fee. So I want to have it put on record that whatever reason we choose to pursue or not pursue non-mandated busing, we are not looking to take buses away from children who can't pay for them. They are protected by statute. And
Very good.
That's all I have to say about that. But I'm tired of hearing about kids who can't afford it and why would we be taking this away from them? We won't be taking it away from them. They're protected by statute.
Your point is well taken, and it does go back to my concern that we keep finding ways of why we're not doing something instead of finding ways of why we should be doing something. So I think we just file this right under that category. So again, I want to just remind the board too that I did forward a communication from Don Byers, school committee member, who forwarded an excellent PowerPoint from the Watertown School Department on how their pay-to-ride program, the challenges that they faced and the questions and the way that they are developing their program. And I think it is something that is very doable. And I think it should be part of our joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen. So the other part of it is that Dawn Byers, as a school committee member, sits on the policy subcommittee. And so she obviously is on the front lines to help develop something that we can present for an eventual pay-to-ride program. So again, I just want to say that we are fortunate to have resources and committed individuals that can see a way forward for this program. That's all. So as I get information, I forward it to the full committee. Whether you decide to, view it is totally up to you. So again, I think this is something that is long overdue personally. So is there anybody that would like to comment further on non-mandated busing? Okay. Is there anybody that has a problem with me keeping it as a place setter on the agenda?
No.
Okay, great. No, I appreciate, I think we should be looking at ways to develop funding. This budget is certainly challenging, and this is just another tool we can have in the toolbox. So annual town report is also on the audit funding status. Again, is tabled until the special town meeting hopefully is reconvened. May I just say one thing on that? I did have a conversation with our technology director, Josh, regarding the possibility of developing a way to have a virtual town meeting. And he was going to do a little bit of research to see if there's any communities within the state of Massachusetts that has done this. Again, I have to frame it in the how can we do it instead of why we can't. Just as a example, the New England Regional Council of Carpenters meets quarterly. Its delegates meet and vote on a quarterly basis, and we've had 2 virtual meetings in the last 2 quarters in which the business of the New England Regional Council is conducted in a format that actually empowers more people. I think if this is something that we can move forward with, we'll actually have more people participating in town meeting than less. People who have physical limitations to, get into town meeting, or maybe they have, other issues that would limit their, ability to get up in front and speak in front of the meeting. Maybe this format would empower more people to participate. So I did explain a little bit to Josh about how our Zoom meeting is set up within the confines of the regional council. And for a professional license, it's about $2,000 or $3,000. And it allows 300 participants that all have voice. They're credentialed in advance. So, the whole idea of, making sure that someone that is voting actually has the ability to vote. So those are just some of the, general things, but obviously it's something that I hope we can move forward with and be the first community in Massachusetts to have a virtual town meeting. So, Dave.
What was the opinion of the town clerk, moderator, and board of selectmen?
There's very preliminary discussions. Josh was going to do some research to see if any of his colleagues have implemented or begun the process of implementing that. And then it will obviously have to go before everybody before, it becomes an idea. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has it been discussed with any of those 3 parties?
This is the first discussion is right here tonight. So I hope we put it on the agenda to have the discussion when we meet jointly with the Board of Selectmen. But I hope even prior to that Josh moves forward with some, research and presents it to the Board of Selectmen. So, but we'll have to see where that goes. So again, this is just a shot over the bow right now. This is certainly not anything that is going to get implemented without the full input of everybody involved, including the Board of
As
Selectmen.
I was saying, I can see it now. It's going to be like American Idol, everybody watching on cable access TV and then calling in whatever the votes are. But how they do that technically and make it accurate, that I don't know. I'm not a Josh.
Right, yeah. So I mean, the voting system is very much similar to the way we do it with the the clickers at the town
Right.
meeting, you know, so it's done electronically, that's all. So, yeah, I mean, all good questions. I mean, like I said, it starts with an idea. So if anybody has anything that they want to add, I'd certainly entertain a further discussion, or we can bring it again to the Board of Selectmen for their input. Okay. The annual town report. Kathleen did email me some punctuation and structure, sentence structure edits. So what I'm going to do is incorporate them into that report and get it back out to the committee for final review, and we'll vote on it perhaps at our next meeting. Thank you, Kathleen, for doing that. And on the agenda too is the budget second meetings. I did have a conversation with both the interim town administrator and town accountant Ken Lytle about drafting and sending out another budget mailing to see if we could get budgets resubmitted that are more in line with the Madden recommendations and the policies that have been enacted by the Board of Selectmen. So again, this is something we need to get before we can really plow into making any headway on the budget. John Galvin.
I was gonna bring this up later, but since you brought it up now, last meeting, we were having discussions about this, and actually Rosemary made a comment that I thought was interesting. So she had mentioned it would be interesting for us to see what a budget looked like with the Madden recommendations kind of applied to it. So if you don't mind, I kind of created a worksheet column. And if I can share the screen, hold on one second. Wait a minute.
So it's more a what if budget, right,
Well,
John?
it is absolutely a what if. What if we applied Madden's recommendations to those budgets that were above, hold on one second.
2.5%?
Above 2.5%. So basically, hopefully you can all see this. Do you see the blue column on the right? It says Madden's worksheet and a percentage. So anything that is in pink had some edits done to it. So as we scroll down, basically the only change in the selectmen's was the actual contracted salary for the new town administrator, which is 142.8. And that brings them to 3.8. We can't go any lower than that because that's a contract. So everything else, as I went down, was brought. If they were already below 2.5, I left it. If they were above 2.5, all I did was, as you can see, the treasurer collector, I took their last year's number, multiplied it by 2.5%, and put in a column. I didn't take the time to go through all of the, all I did was the total. Does everybody understand what
Right.
they're looking at there?
If in fact we did recommend budgets, we would expect.
If exactly. So
the budget manager
so
would
the
do the
Laura
line
count was a 2.4. There's no change there. Technology, again, similar to selectmen. The only line that's increased is this expense line. And Josh actually gave us a very detailed budget line in which he explained that expense increase were software and hardware contracts that he has no control over. So that is like a number we can't cut, because if we cut that, then we wouldn't have those software and hardware to work with, because the licenses would go away.
So John, in that budget, you have a new person too.
No, I took it out. If you see right here, it's not
Okay.
in there.
Okay.
So basically everybody, those are the only two. Technology was the only one in. So as you go down, you can see the changes. I'll get down to total government. So that's basically the sum of everything above. And with the sum changes, that's has gone from a 5.7% increase to a 2% increase. That's basically town hall. That's everything in there. So that's what that number is. We work our way down. The police department, again, I just took last year's number, multiplied it by 2.5. Same with fire. DPW was already, inspectional services was already below because he had come off of the 3-year 555 plan. Everything else in blue, nothing's changed. Total public safety, 2.3%. We go to schools. I was kind of wondering what to do here because we don't have a number for social vote tech. I left it alone. I was going to put 5% in there because that's what we're doing for schools, but I left it alone just to make things more relative for us. The school, nothing changed on the school. No changes. Health department, there was some changes there. Went from 7.6. I'll keep going a little faster here because I think you all get the gist of this. Unclassifieds, again, I mean, these are things that we cannot control. So I did not change anything there. Obviously, as we get closer, we might have some better understanding of what our general insurance number might be, or, but things like counting retirement and things like that, unemployment conversation, those are things that we can't change. Debt service didn't change because that's what it is. Okay, so basically I stopped here. Total budget inside levy went from 4.1% to 3.1%. I added this line that it's a savings of $371,000. The deficit still remains at 376. So basically, the moral of the story here is that even if we applied all of Madden's numbers, we still have a deficit. We've only cut the deficit basically in half. And that still doesn't include social vote tech. So,
Right,
So
and
we
we
haven't-
still don't
didn't
have the final number for Whitman Hanson.
and we don't
Yeah.
have the final, yeah, no, we don't. But leaving the Madden placeholder in there for 5% for the schools, because that didn't change. So,
What do we plan to, I mean, we have all these reasons for departments that couldn't stay within 2.5%, right? Contractual, this, that, they don't cut back on anything. But this isn't an actual 2.5%. This is, you've left percentages for 2 departments that don't reflect that. And the reason I ask that is anything over, they can take it to the floor and ask the bosses, ask the public for that extra money and do an override that way. If it is actually needed, as you stated, then the department has to grow forward like that. So that's why I said that,
well,
you
can't take it to the floor and increase a line item with
Not a
money
line
that
item,
we,
I'm
with
talking
money
about-
that we don't have.
exactly. That's why
so-
that's why you go for an override. That's what I'm saying. Anything over, if it is, as you stated, necessary, we expect these departments to grow at 2.5% and the school at 5% consistently. At what point are we at where we don't come back every year and go, we can't do this, because it seems like, the same departments will come back and do that every year. What point do we say, this is the Madden's report, this
Well,
is how we have to follow through?
Which departments are you talking about? You're talking about,
Whatever one's,
the only one that came in above was technology, and that was.
have we looked at a 5-year growth for technology? How is it trending?
Do we have
Has
a
it
revenue
trended?
forecast that far out?
5 years back and 5 years forward is what we're supposed to be doing, I think, according to the.
The
So
only-
what,
the only
let's see what
revenue
our growth is.
The only revenue forecast I see is what's on tab 3 here.
Okay, let's check it out.
I know, hopefully our new town administrator talked a lot about that in his interviews about doing 5 and 10-year revenue forecasts and all of that. We don't have that now. We don't have that to refer to this year.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think, you know, you also got to remember that Madden didn't say they're all going to grow 2.5 and 5. He said that, well, the 2.5, he said up to 2.5. That doesn't mean that
You're right.
everybody gets to grow 2.5%. He said that the recommendation is no one is up to. So hopefully lots of them are below that so that they can offset the departments like technology that you can't control that software contract. That software contract is what the companies say they are. And if we don't want to pay it, and I think Josh has said several times in his meetings that he's actually been fairly lucky in many of the companies have been willing to work with him and keep his numbers down.
Yeah.
But, you know, things like, I mean, really, that's the only thing that's above and beyond is that one department other than, you know, the unclassifieds, which, you know, I wouldn't, you know, what our medical and life insurance town match is,
Yep.
you know, I have to assume that's a pretty solid number.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
I
I think
have no
the-
way of knowing county retirement. I have no way of knowing what those
Right.
numbers are
Yeah.
and where they come from.
John, I think
Okay,
the
thank you, John.
exercise was, I think the exercise was well worth it. I think, you know, the idea for us to take a look at, you know, what the budget would look like if we were within our recommendations from the Madden and the Board of Selectmen. So, Dave, do you have a question? You're muted.
Just a comment is that a budget override without meaningful cuts to the existing budget are meaningless because all you're doing is perpetuating the issues for the next year.
So we have discussed the fact that we have a budget crisis for the last 3 years, and we have done stopgap measures in the last 2 to avoid having an override. So I am certainly not condoning an override. I think we're moving in the right direction by completing this exercise. And again, John, I appreciate the fact that you, you know, threw the numbers in there so we could all see that the deficit would be cut basically in half if we fall in the general.
A little
guidance.
under, yeah, a little under, yeah.
So again, our work is cut out for us. It is only January. You know, May does come quickly, so we certainly have to get with our Board of Selectmen to let them know, and again, initiate this budget mailing as soon as possible so that the department heads can look at their budget and cut the lines where they see fit. Again, John, the way you did it was good because you just did the total budget. So we would expect if a department, the budget manager resubmits a budget, they're going to take a look at their lines and figure out where those cuts are going to be made.
I guess my question in bringing that up is what guidance are they giving to where are they supposed to go? If you tell them 2.5, then in my opinion, you're wasting that exercise. You're asking them to do something that isn't going to achieve the desired result, you know, and I might suggest that, as Mr. Salvucci suggested earlier, that before we go ahead and exercise sending out more budget requests, that we wait for the new town administrator to come in to have him, you know, one of the things I hope he does is sit down with the town accountant and review our revenue estimates. You know, he's coming at it from a totally different angle. He's going to have, you know, look at certain things and say, why are we doing this? Where did you come up with that? And, you know, what about this? What about that? What are some alternate revenue sources? You know, I think we talked about, you know, last meeting, we talked about the leftover 300,000 from the ambulance fund. You know, how can we use that? How can that be used? Can that be a revenue source for us? You know, so I would suggest maybe that mailing wait until, you know, maybe mid-February, until the new town administrator has a chance. I mean, he's a financial guy. You know, he's going to come forth with things that none of us have seen before when it comes to municipal finance, including, you know, possibly even our town accountant, because he's relatively new at municipal finance. So,
So the only downside to that, John, that I can see is that we're derailing our budget process for the period of almost a month. We're not going to be able to do anything. We really will not be able to meet for a month if we can't move forward in trying to make some recommendations on how to pare down this budget, you know? So if that's the will of the committee, I don't mind having a month-long recess, but it's certainly going to put it a little bit more in crunch time for us going towards May. Kathleen?
As much as I love meeting with you guys every week, I wouldn't mind to have a couple of weeks off, especially given the fact that I believe the superintendent is planning to make his budget presentation to the school committee on February 10th. And that at least will give us, if my viewing the Hanson FinCom meeting was just an exercise in what are they doing, that there aren't any real numbers out there right now, then fine. Let's wait until the superintendent, because they have the biggest budget. They have the biggest impact on our overall bottom line. And so if we wait until the superintendent of schools provides the school committee members and then us with real numbers, we can fill those numbers in and see if that closes the gap a little bit more. If 4% is what Hanson came up with on their own as opposed to the superintendent, then maybe the superintendent is going to have a bigger number that I had sort of backtracked based on watching that meeting. So.
Okay. Very good. Well, just so you know, in order to meet the posting requirements, we have already secured the date of January 26th with the Whitman Hanson Cable Access, and the meeting is posted. But if we want to cancel it, that's fine. And so what's your pleasure for posting the next meeting? February 9th? The new town administrator starts on February 8th. The Whitman Hanson budget presentation is February 10th.
And Rick South Shore VOTEC should have theirs probably a couple days after the governor releases his. So probably like 28th, 29th, they might have some concrete numbers of January.
So would you like to schedule a meeting for the 9th and then probably have the joint meeting with selectmen? I wouldn't assume it's going to be any time before the fourth week in February. So it's the will of the committee is my will.
I think meeting on February 9th sounds fine.
The February 9th, we'll be able to at least have a presentation from the South Shore VOTEC. Chuck, whether it's you delivering the information, or I'm sure we wouldn't have any problem getting Tom in either. So
yeah, either way.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So I will cancel the meeting for January 26th, and I will post for February 9th, 7 o'clock.
Mr. Chairman,
John New.
just a point of order. One of the communications that you've received requires action within 14 days. I'm not sure when that deadline is.
What was that?
What's that, Dave?
That was the open meeting law complaint form issued to you.
So what am I supposed to do with it, Dave? You want to help me out here?
If you don't know, I'll let you know here.
Yeah.
Instructions for the public body that receives a complaint. The chair must disseminate the complaint to the members of the public body. The public body must meet to review the complaint within 14 business days. After the review within 14 business days, the public body must respond to the complaint in writing and must send the complainant a response and a description of any action the public body has taken to address it. At the same time, the body must send the Attorney General a copy of the response. The public body must delegate this responsibility to its council or staff member, but only after it has met to review the complaint. If the public body requires more time to review the complaint and respond, it may request an extension of time for good cause by contacting the Division of Open Government.
Can we handle that now?
So
Not on our agenda.
I just
Oh,
received
so
this.
we'll do-
This is a communication that was going to be in the communications part of our agenda. So the communication is from the Office of the Town Clerk, and it is a open meeting law complaint form. And it's basically a complaint that was filled out by Don Varley. And I'll read the description of the alleged violation. As a member of the Board of Health, I was informed via email that the Finance Committee had scheduled a meeting with the board first at 7:45, and the last email said 8 a.m. If that's what it says. The email with the link stated that the meeting with the Finance Committee and Board of Health was to occur at 8 a.m. I logged in at 8:01 p.m. on January 5th, only to find out that the budget meeting had already concluded and that they had started early. I believe this is a violation of the open meeting law. What action do you want the public body to take in response to your complaint? I would like the chairman to adhere to the posted agenda with corresponding times. That's what the complainant would like. So Dave, with respect to your interpretation of the open meeting law, I believe the complainant is only wishing for me to ensure that we adhere to the posted agenda with corresponding time.
Right,
Now,
but Rick,
if
if you listen to the instructions, after review, but within 14 business days, the public body must respond, and it goes on.
Nothing in here that says that.
That's because you're only reading the complaint. You're not reading what the Attorney General lists as the open meeting law complaint form instructions for completing, and I'll send it to everybody right now.
Well, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I thought
So
you
I
were
will put this on the agenda for the February.
Do we need
19th.
do we need to meet on the 2nd then to take care of this within that 14-day window?
Well, we're posted for the 26th. I suppose we should just leave that meeting
Oh.
posted and
Yeah, maybe
address
we
it
should
then.
just do that then.
Okay.
Yeah. We have another correspondence. Oh, Kathy, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
My question is, when does the clock start ticking for the 14 business day? Once we, members of the FinCom, receive a copy of this communication? Because we're operating under challenging conditions, and if Rick receives something today, the 9 of us are not going to get a copy of that immediately. So when does the clock start ticking?
To me, in my estimation, this complaint is frivolous at best. The
Agreed.
committee has met with multiple departments and started their meetings prior to the posted time. I think it's incumbent on the budget managers who come to the meeting to say, not everybody's here. Could we wait until 8 o'clock to see if Mrs. Jones logs in so that she could be part of the meeting?
Right. If we were able to meet in person, we would know they weren't in the room.
Right. So the other part of it is that I did not invite the complainant to the meeting. I sent the link to the chair and the budget manager. And that is typically the way I send the invitations with the agenda, is to the budget manager to disseminate to whoever they feel should participate in the meeting. So it's not incumbent on the chair or the committee to ensure that everybody who thinks they should be involved in the discussion is involved in the discussion. So
So
no
can I
problem
interpret that?
together. Go ahead, Chuck.
So maybe she should be filing the complaint with the Board of Health?
That is my contention exactly. I mean,
I believe
me-
I believe she did.
okay.
I heard she did as well.
So, like I said, I think by going to the office of the Attorney General with a complaint, it certainly doesn't serve any public interest. With respect to the way meetings are conducted in this virtual platform, we offer everybody an opportunity to participate. So I have no problem following up. I appreciate the fact that Dave has prepared the procedure for us, and I look forward to getting that so we can be in compliance with the law. But I fully intend on making it clear that this individual was not invited to the meeting by the Finance Committee. So if there is an issue with this person, they have it with the department that was meeting with the committee, that's all. So like I said, we'll have a conversation. Go ahead, Dave.
I don't think one person's perceived notion of the veracity of the complaint should dictate how we respond. I think we should
No,
respond
we're not,
by
Dave.
Attorney General rules.
We're gonna, Dave. Yeah, you made it clear
Yeah.
that you were gonna share that information. That's the way we're gonna do it. I'm just
We can
stating the
take it up
fact.
next week.
Yeah, thank you, Dave,
that's-
for sharing that. So, there was another complaint that was handled and settled. Seems to be a lot of complaints going on, but I think you sent something from the
The
a
State
letter.
Ethics Commission
the
regarding,
State Ethics Commission.
Yes.
So that'd be the second time that they've been told that this is, whoever's calling in has been told that. Go ahead.
yeah, well, I was just going to say that we did get the communication from Brian McWilliams, a special investigator for the State Ethics Commission. And I forwarded that communication to the board so that everybody's aware that they are satisfied that the matter doesn't require any further action on their part. So, yeah, I mean, this was 6 months ago, so I don't know why it's resurrected again, but, you know, we'll keep doing what we need to do. I think, you know, the bottom line, and I said this to the state inspector when he called, was these are all volunteers here. You know, we're making sure that we communicate openly, and that is why we took the initiative to utilize our own funds to publish that article in the newspaper. So he agreed. So he, like I said, we'll respond to the other complaint in the method that is described in the communication that Dave will be forwarding. And I will amend the agenda to make sure that this is part of it.
Can you forward us the complaint too, so that we can read it directly? Do we
Yeah,
have a minute?
it's written.
Oh, it's not via email?
It came by mail.
Can
to
you
my
scan,
house.
can you scan it like you did the other document the other day?
I
You
think I took a
scan-
picture of the other.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Take a picture of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just so we
I'll do
have it,
that.
so we can see what it looks, read it for
I
ourselves.
certainly will, so we can be prepared.
Yeah.
Just an
for next
overview quickly. Just quickly, I was unaware that member was a new member. And I think everybody on this committee would want anybody who's part of any committee to be invited. It was not intentional. And if it upset that person, I'm sorry, that personally as a committee member. That would
Well,
never be the intent.
Yeah, ironically, that is actually stapled to the complaint, was the immediate apology that I issued on behalf of the committee that night. So,
Yes.
I mean, it was very clearly stated that, you know, we apologize for the oversight, and we certainly, you know, we certainly know in the future that if there are subsequent meetings with this department, we will wait until the appointed time or until somebody tells us from that department that that person isn't coming. Yeah. So I don't think we're going to change the way we do things, to tell you the truth, but. Okay, that's it for that, unless anybody has anything further. So just a quick review of the meeting with the interim town administrator and the just so we make sure we are transparent. So the 5 items that I requested from Lisa Green at our meeting this afternoon was contact information for the new town administrator. We do not have it. He's not scheduled to start until February 8th. We discussed the possibility of having a joint meeting. And again, now we know where that stands. And we did discuss about communication to budget managers, a subsequent budget mailing. And I did ask her to bring to the Board of Selectmen's attention the possibility of the virtual special town meeting or annual town meeting to get the discussion going. And the other item was the assessment, that question that Kathleen asked me to bring forward about Hanson's work on their budget and how they came about with the financial information to plug into their Article 2. So, and like I said, I followed it up with that email. Any questions on any of that? Okay, anybody have anything else that they would like to bring up under new business? John? No.
It's basically been discussed, but I think we need to alert the town departments well before we meet with the Board of Selectmen. Dan mentioned in a month or two, as far as when they would schedule a meeting with us. And we still have, granted, if we allow for Madden increases hypothetically applied to the town budgets, we still have the question of the town clerk's 5% raise, and whether anything has happened with that since the 2004 town meeting. How is the IT person functioning with no Frank Lyman as backup? We've got a contractual requirement supposedly with, I believe it was fire for an administrative position. There's a number of positions that are either looking at significant increases or whatever, and the 2.5, to say you're going to apply 2.5 across the board is wonderful, but I don't know that you can look at it that way. And quite honestly, having read the Madden report, I was never involved in any of the earlier discussions about it. I will admit that. He's basically telling the town, you've got flat revenue, you're spending beyond your means, and you're rolling down a road that is taking you, the only way you're going to get out of it is an override. And overrides are not the type of thing you do to maintain an operational budget. So, I mean, I can understand that some of the key pieces may not start to fall into place until the middle or end of February. But I think some of these little few thousand here and a few thousand there need to be clarified. And then we're going to be rushing at the end if we don't have all of these pieces at least started. And if we haven't alerted the town departments that we won't be in a position to support even a modest increase in some cases.
Yeah, your point's well taken, John. We've been asking for a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen for 4 weeks, so it's not a new idea. We typically meet with the Board of Selectmen every January. You know, I don't see why this should be any different. There are other items too that you didn't touch on: the pay to ride program, the audit, the fact that we have no budget from the selectmen yet, a capital plan, a strategic plan. You know, these are all things that really shouldn't be waiting until the end of February to discuss if we're going to make any progress before annual town meeting. So, yeah, I'll have another conversation. You did also, just one other thing is there was a request for a report on the CARES Act distributions. So everybody did get that summary. So if there's questions on that, I did put it on the agenda for the 26th when I posted. So if there's questions on that, bring them to the meeting next week.
Well, I'm just suggesting that, yes, we do want to meet with the Board of Selectmen. They are not the ones who are putting the budget together. We obviously would like, it would be important to have their support, but at this stage, if they're telling us, we'll see you in a couple of months, there could be some things that we could be working on before we meet with them. Are they going to be able to plug in numbers as far as the possibility of pay for ride on the bus? You know, are some of these things issues that we will not have clarified when we meet with them? And will they be in a position to fill in the blanks?
Well, with pay to ride, for example, we had a discussion with them last January, and we actually had them to be moving in that direction slightly. But it's always been stated that if we're going to discuss pay to ride program, it has to be early in the budget season. And now we're climbing right out of that again. So You know, it's difficult, Kathleen.
On that issue, last year we were asked or informed that this year was the new bus contract year. So this is the year we should do pay to ride, or at least consider it, because last year's contract was signed, sealed, and delivered. So this is the time for us to act on investigating that $400,000 line item that we don't have to spend.
Right, and you talk about that even following the 2.5 cuts, that additional 370 something thousand, there's some of it would come right out of that, you know, if we could get moving on the program. Chuck.
And if I will remind everybody, which most of you already know, Don Byers has, on a few occasions over the last few years, given us some good information and some kind of structure and things to follow. So yeah, we've been talking about this and kicking this can a lot. And I hate to see it go another year and we don't do anything on it.
Yeah, I agreed, Chuck. Very good point. All right, anybody else? All right, so like I said, I will repost to amend the agenda to incorporate the open meeting law complaint discussion. And we will reconvene on the same place here next week. With that, unless there's further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. John Galvin,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
John Noon,
Yes.
Ralph. Ralph is a yes. Dave.
Yes.
Rosemary.
Yes.
Ralph.
Yes.
All right, and I vote yes as well. So appreciate everybody's input. It's all important stuff. Again, I look forward to getting together next week. Thank you to Whitman Hanson Community Access. And we will, thank you, Samantha. We will act on those meeting minutes, I'm sure, by the time we get the updates too.
Awesome. Right.
Thank
Thanks,
you
Rick.
all.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
All right, thanks.
Good night,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rick.